Interesting.
And Dealmaker sort of originated out of Richmond, Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
with a guy named Jim Ingersoll, who's
Mm-hmm.
pretty well known in the space, in the real estate space.
Wait, isn't that the guy you were talking about that has like $1 million in lines of credit or something? Like a credit card?
No, different guy.
Different guy. Okay, no,
Different
no.
guy.
Scott was talking about that. Sorry.
We just did a podcast.
No, he told me last time.
Yeah, Larry. Yeah, Larry Steinhaus had it.
That's him. That's him.
Yeah.
Scott was just referencing
Scott who?
Ford you.
Oh yeah, Forge.
Scott and Tabitha,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, Scott and Tabitha. Yeah, they know Larry.
Yeah.
I've been at events speaking at Larry's events, and Scott and Tabitha have been there and whatnot. We get along well. We tried to close a deal for Scott, and then I don't know what happened in Glassbar, which fell apart.
Yeah. Everybody's connected. Everybody knows each other.
Seriously. But you were saying about the Dealmaker organization?
So the Dealmaker organization is a little different than some of the organizations. You know, sometimes in life you find people that you really get along with and kind of think alike. And you don't think alike such that it becomes a detriment where you put blinders on and you only think that way. But here you have some people who are a little bit past the brand new
Mm-hmm.
and have some experiences to share with the group and do it in a really positive way. That's really what Dealmaker's about.
Mm.
So it's a nice environment, a good vibe to the tribe, haha, right?
See that?
But
See that?
it is. And the guy who sort of created it, Jim, the kind of guy, like, I'm not going to pretend to say I know him. Well, I don't. I went to one meeting, and I had a chance to speak to him a little bit, and then obviously I had to drive back to New Jersey from Richmond, Virginia, so I didn't get to hang out with him,
Too long.
unfortunately, but I'd like to.
Yeah.
If you really find that you dislike this person and you think you'd have to really look in the mirror and question your own, because you better be great.
Yeah.
Like, he's a pretty nice guy. I meet thousands of people.
Why do you say that people have that opinion of him, though?
No,
Is it
of being nice?
no of being
Oh no, I'm
not
saying
nice?
if you felt that way,
Oh, okay.
you'd
After
have
meeting
to
him,
really question yourself.
gotcha.
And I'm saying, like, you better be Tom Brady at whatever you do, right? Or Tiger Woods or Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Because or else he's pretty good.
Yeah.
And you know,
It's hard to be with, hard to compete.
If you're
Yeah.
in that you're not competing, but if you're in that kind of environment with 25, 30 other people, you're not there to compete. You're there to learn, grow,
Yeah.
share,
Mhm.
exchange. If you join a mastermind like that, and it costs money.
Mhm.
And a lot of people say, "Wow, I can't afford the 15 grand or whatever the numbers." I don't even know what the numbers.
Yeah.
To be honest.
That sounds about right.
Probably,
Yeah.
but I don't know. You go through a whole year, and you don't earn that back by one new relationship in a joint venture or some kind of deal or borrowing money privately. You better look at yourself. I'm older than you guys, and I'm older than most. My generation has been taught that all that is a cost.
Mm-hmm.
Your generations are being taught the who. Who can help you with that, right? How can I put together a right team so I can do something at a bigger level? That's a change of mentality, but it's the one that wins big. We look at all the people who have done phenomenal and now have some public presence and whatnot. It's not them.
Their
There's
teams.
not Warren Buffett. There's Warren Buffett. He's 90 years old. There's no 24-year-old who's right. Not really, because the most successful one I know, who's a multi-billionaire, who's 26 now, Palmer Luckey, he's still got like big teams. That's the kid who sold Oculus that I mentioned to you.
Oh wow.
Right?
Yeah.
But even his new company, they have a real team of people. He's not there trying by himself to create nuclear warheads.
Right.
Right? Now, he may use his expanded network to help foster his team's ability. That's true. But he's staying in his genius zone, and he's bringing in other people in their genius zones, and together it creates something unbelievable. My generation has a hard time with that.
Mm.
I was just talking to somebody, one of my mentees on the drive down, and I was asking her, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I was at this event this past weekend out in California. This guy kept asking me these questions. He thought what I was doing was genius." For Chrissy, because is he close to my age? She said, "Well, yeah." She was embarrassed, didn't want to say that, but I'm totally fine with it. He's been taught, you go do how. You want to make more money, Drexel? You work more hours. Right? You get a second job on the weekend or at night. That's what we're taught. It doesn't work. At some point, you just run out of ability to stay awake, right? Which limits how much you can make. That can't be the right strategy then, right? I mean, come on. It just can't be the right strategy.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was your age, all I would be trying to figure out is how to lay out an organization that can really accomplish great things and then find people who have experience in those different roles and put them together. You'll make a fortune. You'll actually even like it too, by the way, which enhances the whole experience.
Because you're working with others.
Yeah, you work with smart SOPs.
Yeah.
I mean, people who really like what they do. Like, you're in those environments. It pumps you up, man.
Can I ask you a question about that
Sure.
though? Like, at what point does that become overreaching? You know what I'm saying? Because like we as an organization now, we're 2 people, right? I know that we can have X amount of deal flow per month, and we have ideas about how we could automate a lot of this,
Right.
how we could create software around it and all this stuff, and bring on these smart people. But the thing that I think keeps both of us from doing that is just like, are we over? I don't know what the word is, but that's like, you know what I'm saying?
Are
Just
you
like,
overreaching?
am I overreaching and also overextending myself financially by doing that? Like, how am I going to pay a salary for somebody to do that? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to consider that too.
True, but you're too young to be thinking of everything as a cost. I do, because that's what I was indoctrinated with for 40, 50, 60 years.
Wow.
And when I was in school, that's what you were taught. Someone costs you something.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever said, Christian's much better than this than you are, Joel. And he actually understands 98% of what he's going to have to figure out already. So, yeah, you're going to pay him something, but that's an investment because think of all those 3-4 hours you're going to get back a day, or at least every other day.
Yeah.
Those 12 hours to be creative on what you're best at. How much could you make in those 12 hours? Or you can spend them learning something that you hate, you're not really great at, and pound your way through it.
Wow.
Right? They didn't teach me that in school.
Yeah,
they didn't
yeah.
speak that way to me in school.
Right.
They told you if you wanted to earn more money,
Gotta
you got to
roll up your
hours.
sleeves and.
Because also, when I was a young guy, when I was in school, you were almost made to feel like it was cheating if you took advantage of the other resources available. Like something was not right with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very different mentality than reality. Because I don't think Elon Musk creates everything on his own, but he's a multi-billionaire, right? I mean, I met through my youngest son one of the guys who was, I think, number 12 at Tesla, the 12th person in or something, an engineer. I was still in his early 30s.
Wow.
And he's worth like $40, $50 million. He would have been worth more if he stayed, but he wanted to leave and go do his own thing.
Wow.
But having those types of touch experiences enables him to go to some venture capital firms with certain credibilities that you and I can't go with yet,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to raise those funds to be able to support that cause that you and I are kind of worried about sometimes. Right?
Yeah.
Like how much can I afford?
Right.
Because I got to balance it out in reality. But I'd be willing to bet if you guys really strategically business planned and you thought about the dollars that get raised by the different people doing these different roles, you'd be able to justify it. Maybe not 50 people, but 2 or 3 key people to start to help you expand under control so that you could build a whatever it's called, a downstream, or, and you start to put that in place and your business grows. I give you a quick example.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a trader on Wall Street.
Is this rolling?
That's
Like
well.
19, like, I don't remember exactly when Al joined. Say about 1990. We met this young guy on the floor. His name was Al. Real bright guy, very intelligent guy. And he ended up coming to trade with me for my firm. And then another guy, Dave, came. And eventually, they helped also recruit people to come trade for us.
Mm-hmm.
Every year, they would take me to Christmas lunch. And I knew what was coming. It wasn't just to have a nice lunch. I knew I was going to be told, not asked, and I would be given the reasons to support why, that I was going to give up percentage of ownership in my company to both of them. Willingly, knowingly, each Christmas, it was coming. They give me my salsa and chips because they knew I loved that at the Mexican place behind the exchange. We'd sit down,
That's good
order
to know.
drinks like water and club sodas, whatever, because we had to go back to work. And I knew they were going to explain, listen, you owned in the beginning 100%, then it went down to I don't remember, say 80 or something like that, maybe 10%. We ended up working our way to becoming equal partners. And I would tell you that every year, my personal income went up, although my ownership went down. They were more and more vetted, more and more wedded.
Mm.
And we were also able to take that and show other people it could be real for them too. We could do that for them too if they were really wanting that tract. We could, begin to give them some ownership in the firm if we wanted to. And in doing so, we'd incentivize people the correct way. And too many people think that incentive is always just pure dollars. It's not always. As part of it, I get it. But people also like certain roles and feel empowered by them. And if you want to be a good leader, you have to put people in those situations. You have to recognize it, think about what you like versus you or myself. They might not all be the same all the time.
Right.
And as a leader, you have to understand that and work your way through it. I definitely don't do a great job all the time of it, but I'm thinking about it all the time and I'm trying to make adjustments. Right? None of us are perfect. We have to keep learning and growing though, or else we
Well,
sit stagnant and get killed.
you're talking about what others want.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. I said to somebody this morning, one of the problems that a lot of people face is they never make it through the stage of it's about them. It's not. Rarely ever. Yeah, you have those moments, but 90 out of 100 moments are not just about you. And as you begin to understand that, which for me happened around 2014, started to get a lot smarter, more aware, everything changes. When the dynamic, I know it's very cliche, Zig Ziglar, back in the day, but there's a reason 50, 100 people are quoted with that quote about understanding and doing for others, and in return, you'll get more than you expect yourself. I know I'm paraphrasing, but you guys probably seen it, heard it, or saw it on a podcast or a movie, whatever.
Yeah.
But you see it there. There's real truth to that. My business exploded to the upside, gave me a chance to make it back from the depths of disasters. Mostly because I started to care what the other person needed and wanted, and less worried about myself. I started to do better with my relationships with people grew. The business we did together grew. I actually felt better also personally, which was a big thing because I'd gone through unbelievable hemorrhaging and disaster. So I carried that sort of with me. And, between guilt and am I an idiot and all those things we go through of self-doubt. You have to get out of self-pity. You still got to go through self-doubt, right?
Yeah.
It's not like it's automatically just over instantly. But as I started to interact with people in that different way, things really opened up for me and changed.
Yeah.
And now as I basically demand it of all the young people in my office to really understand that and listen to me whether they like it or not. As I say to them, I know most of you or all of you pretty much your whole lives, but you didn't live with me, so you weren't really my kids, but you're going to become. And these are very important basic principles you need to understand and embrace. And if you do, your life can change. I wish I would have been a lot smarter than waiting all the way to 2014 at this stage in my life. That eliminated 50 years. I could have been a lot smarter, a lot wiser, better off, all that good stuff, but I'm glad it happened. It wouldn't have happened if I didn't go through the crash because honestly, I thought I was pretty slick and pretty smart doing all the tricks you guys see on Instagram now. 0% this, business lines of credit, OPM, all that stuff. I mean, pretty basic stuff, honestly.
Yeah.
That's not tricky. You just need to get exposure to it, and then you can figure it out.
So what I'm hearing is crash happened. 2014 is when stuff started to kind of change for you.
The market started to really change somewhere in late 11, early 12.
Mm-hmm.
The banking world system structure, whatever you want to call it, started to allow, I hate to use this term, but regular people, normal people, to buy a property out of some real estate owned trust or bank owned properties, etc. And you figured out you could put a little love into it and then sell it higher. So, we've talked before, and I went from being a hard money lender, like this evil human being, property, Darth Vader charging you a fortune. So now you can make some money
on your deal.
And now I'm of need to your business solution.
Right.
Now I get a pamphlet, a brochure, a pop-up banner. Like the world changed. We had meetings instead of being like this clandestine guy in a car driving by throwing the wad of cash out for the monthly payment. Like the world changed dramatically. And For us inside of Burr, we started to hear the word term Burr around 2018, and I didn't know really what it was, to be perfectly honest. But I had done my first Burr trade transaction in 1996 into 1997
Mm-hmm.
when I bought my first investment property was this little condominium that a realtor friend had showed me. I bought it. Even to this day, it's ridiculous. What I paid to fix it up, and we did really simple stuff for like 7,000 and change. I'm talking simple medicine cabinet, toilet, painting. I think we changed the outside mailbox and the light when you step into your door. That's in the entrance.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you, embarrassingly, I spent 7,000 and change to do that. This is 2025, 28, 9 years later, and I can still do it for 50% of what I spent in 1996, 97. I just didn't know any better.
Yeah.
I went to the company that services my personal residence. I said, this is what I need to do. And they said, oh, Mr. Kraut, we could do that, but this is our cost. I just said, okay. I didn't even know, like,
There were other options.
Find somebody who's going to do this for $1,000.
Yeah.
It didn't even dawn on me.
Yeah.
So, I learned my lessons that way too. But then my life changed because this young lady came to me. Her name was Maria, and she had investigated my mortgage. And I think when we first talked, and I tell people all the time, it really freaked me out because remember, this is the 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is not a popular sport yet. It's not like I walked in every room and everyone's a real estate investor. There were none.
Mm-hmm.
Carlton Sheets on TV. Right, that's it. There was real estate investors between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. on some pay-per-view, station. But I remember Maria came to me and she said, "I think you bought your property really well." I'm like, "Time out. What do you mean? How do you even know what I did?" I didn't realize that mortgages were recorded instruments and they were public records. It didn't dawn on me. She said, well, I see you owe this amount. I'm sure we could refinance the property to market value. And then you could do through this refinance, get all of your money back out and then some. And you still own the property. The tenant is still yours. The cash flow from the rents is still yours. You don't have to give it to me.
Wow. What year was it?
97.
Okay. So this is after the reno.
Yeah. And I didn't think that could be real. I was working on Wall Street. It just sounded too easy, right? Because, like, why wouldn't every Wall Street guy do this?
Do
or
this,
woman
yeah.
do this, right?
Yeah.
They're smart enough to figure this math out.
Right.
But again, there was no exposure. There was no HDTV back then.
Mm.
The internet, Al Gore was just starting. So
Mm-hmm.
we didn't really know what we didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
I call my realtor friend up. I ask if it's legal. I didn't even know it was legal to refinance the investment property house. I was nervous about that. I thought maybe I'm going to sign a document. It's going to get me in trouble. I didn't want to do that, right? I work on Wall Street. I got a clean broker-dealer record. I don't want a problem to make 10 grand.
Right.
Right? Of course, my realtor friend starts laughing at me. She says, of course it's legal. I didn't know. But back then, one of the caveats, you had to wait 12 months and a day. So you had to own the property for 12 months. But on 12 months and a day, Wells Fargo, Chase, Bank of America, Citibank, people like that would refinance for you.
Okay.
So she was, to this day, I think, ingenious. As a mortgage rep, she figured out that you, myself, we might buy a personal residence every few years, right? She wanted to find people who already had more than one mortgage. And then she wanted to find people that were like month 10-ish and then work with them for 2 months to refi them. So she could do lots of them. For people who had more than one mortgage, they must have an investment property.
Mm-hmm.
Again, she showed me. I learned from her, not the other way around. I didn't figure this out. She showed it to me. And then I said, wait a minute. You're telling me your company's dumb enough to give me a mortgage of 20% down. They don't care where the money came from, too, by the way. You didn't have to season funds back then.
Wow.
You wired it in, baby, one day, and one day it hit the title company. You were closing.
Wow.
So
that's huge.
It was a game changer.
Yeah.
So we figured this out. So I went out and I used to take my sexy minivan, ride around to different townhouse developments because in New Jersey they were really unpopular at that time in the late 90s.
Yeah.
It was when single-family homes in New Jersey, from mid-sized builders to larger tract home builders that we're familiar with now, the Pulte Homes, the Lennars, the D.H. Hortons, the Toll Brothers, they were really starting to explode in New Jersey.
Okay.
And starting to give you 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, 2,600, 2,800 square feet.
Okay.
And at that time, the price point as a start was like $249, $259. I know for all of us, that's hard to believe now in the towns that you want to live in, but that really was. So you had this townhome that was like 100 to 150,000. basically had no value anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If I could make that big leap, have my second kid, and everybody has a bedroom, why the hell would I want this townhome that I feel like we're bouncing off the walls in?
Right.
So for a while, the townhomes, the values kind of sunk.
Mm-hmm.
But I used to just knock on the door. They were for sale by owners, and I would just go to the door and ask if they wanted to sell it. And if so, how much were you asking, Christian? You'd give me the number. I'd make you an offer. I'd get back in the car and leave. I'd get one of two immediate phone calls within like 45 minutes for sure. Guy would call me up or a woman would call me. Don't ever come to my house again when I'm not there. My wife and kids are there. Don't ever do that. Or because this was so unusual, you'd get someone to ask you, are you serious? Nobody really ever knocked on the door and made an offer before.
Right. Right.
So there was a kind of a newer thing. And I'd say, yeah. Once that happened, you had a deal done in 40 minutes. You know, maybe 3,000 more than you wanted or 1,000 more than you wanted, whatever, but you got a deal done.
Mm-hmm.
Maria would lock in that mortgage, 80% financing, 20% down. First rates are in the high eights. I think the first mortgage I ever got was for an investment property was 8 7/8. I think my home mortgage, first one, I'll show you how old I am, was, I think we just broke 11.
Wow.
Everyone was excited. We were excited. We thought that was good.
Because it went down to 11?
Yeah, it went down through 11.
Oh
we
my
thought that was
gosh.
good. Yeah, that was exciting. Anyway, and then Maria would just line these up in 12 months in a day, refi me out and give me back all my money.
Mm-hmm.
We did 22 mortgages over the course of a couple of years.
Wow.
It was unbelievable.
And those are all your properties?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, now some were disguised under other people's names because there was a rule about how many mortgages you could have in your own name.
Oh, really?
So we just,
Is that something that's still in play now, or is it?
Yes, depending on who you're working with. I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe the Fannie Mae Freddie Mac rule
Mm-hmm.
doesn't allow you to go past 10. I know some banks, TD is one I know, they usually stop you at 4. And as we've traveled the country, a lot of investors have come to us and said, my credit's great, my portfolio is really solid, but my local credit union says they can only lend me $1.25 million, and that was 5 or 6 houses. Now I'm kind of stuck. And people like us become a necessary evil, these hybrid private direct lender type people like Burr Loans and other companies like that. So that business has boomed, expanded, grown into a real industry when, again, in the mid 2010s to 2019,
Mm-hmm.
it was really in its infancy, and now it's so professional. And you have some of the biggest hedge funds in the world and some of the biggest insurance companies and real estate investment trusts, REITs, involved in pulling out billions of dollars each year, which has just created unbelievable wealth for people around the country. You have people that can buy a single family or a 2-family house and take advantage of the same tax laws as the type of owner who owns the building we're sitting in today. Or I know I'm not making a statement about Donald Trump, but the same buildings Trump owns and his organization, we get to use the same tax laws. We can't use them all because some are more relevant to bigger buildings, that's true. But at the core, the depreciation, amortization, interest expenses, those key pieces that help you be tax advantaged
Mm-hmm.
and thus make real estate a really great long-term investment are there for you and I. So politically, put that aside for a minute. But when those big shots are fighting on Capitol Hill, they're fighting for me too in that sense because I just get to use the laws that they're trying to protect. And that's the part I care about. I'm not making any personal statements about what they believe in. That's way above my pay grade.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that I want depreciation to be protected. I want amortization, my loan closing costs, to be amortized over 5 years so I can get that back too. I want full interest expense. So if I use an interest-only loan, I can deduct 100% of that as an expense.
Mm-hmm.
I want all those things to stay solid in place. To me, I believe, I definitely could be wrong, but it's my personal belief that at some point, in the push to challenge the rich in America, they will take away every dollar of residential mortgage interest deductibility. Because for the people that they want to look like the politicians are punishing or going after, that's really popular, right? You can't do that on the commercial side because it will destroy the underpinnings of the American economy instantly. Imagine you're in a strip center. There's no deductibility for depreciation and interest expense and amortization. Imagine what a slice of pizza would cost you.
Oh my
think about it,
gosh.
just doubled now.
Yeah.
From $1.50 to $3. Slice of pizza could cost you $6 instantly. All these places would be going out of business. Nobody would be cutting somebody else's lawn anymore. Hair salons would be dead. Pizza places, Chinese takeout. Like these little businesses that create so many different jobs and careers would be, say, adverse impact. It wouldn't even be remotely close to that. Just wipe them out. And that would be a shame. Not just a shame, but the underpinnings, the basic cores of some of the American economy would be destroyed. I mean, right now, if you think about it, Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks, and some of the other coffee shops probably account for, like, I don't know what the right number is, but 5 to 10% of retail space in the country.
Wow.
5%? I don't know, something crazy, right? Just wipe it out in 1 second.
Yeah,
that's,
yeah.
That's a rough go. I don't care who you are.
Right.
You know, supermarkets having a hard enough battle already. Then you're going to double the expense on them. So everything goes online. You know, I hate to see that. I would hate to see that. You know, the business is just it's amazing, but I think one of the biggest mistakes, misnomers, a lot of these mentorship classes and groups, they talk about real estate so much. They don't talk about relationship enough. You know? Everyone is a real estate investor. What do I mean? Everyone's had a problem in life, right? Hands
Yep.
go up in the
Yep.
room when you're speaking publicly. There's always a couple wise guys, but you ask, has anybody ever solved the problem, right? Same hand should stay up because
Right.
they're still sitting there, so they probably solved one. They might not have solved all their problems. They've solved one for sure. But there's always a comedian or two that just say, no, never. You know, I'm screwed, right? Just because it's funny sometimes. But the reality is, as a real estate investor, you're trying to find a problem, work through to analyze it and find a solution, propose the solution that's sort of win-win for both of us, right? I solve your need. I get what I want, which is the asset eventually in a positive way where I can make some money from it and create, let's say, an 80% win-win kind of feeling. And oh yeah, it's attached to real estate. So you're a real estate investor. I get it. But if you're chasing sticks and bricks around and you're not understanding the human aspect of it, you know, it's pretty competitive out there. I don't know how you're really going to win or build what you want for the future. But if you begin to understand, analyze, and value relationship and relationship building, you can really change the dynamics tremendously. You know, so many books are written, and they're not picking up bigger pockets, but they have this huge library of books,
Books.
and those books are written by some really great people and successful people. They make it sound so easy. I mean, the reality is, you don't get as pretty as me without taking a few punches to the face, and you know, it's not as easy as you want to make it out to be all the time.
Yeah.
But with good relationships,
It's possible.
it's definitely possible.
Mm-hmm.
You've greatly improved the mathematical probability of it happening successfully, and you can build something you can scale. But that's because of the relationship. It's not because of one house.
Yeah.
Right? It's just not.
And if you were to speak to a new investor that's asking which relationships would you invest in, what would you say? Does that depend on like the type of deal that you're trying to do, or?
Well, I think some of that, we were talking off camera for a minute. You know, we have this short course. A lot of it's asking yourself questions about like who you are, what you want, where you are in your own personal financial cycles,
Yeah.
what could fit strategically.
Yeah, we'll link that in this, so if you guys want to check that out. Yeah.
You know, you want to understand what fits and works for you, and then build that team around it. We invest away, meaning not, you know, where I live in New Jersey. We only do it though where we've built teams. Boots on the ground is the common term you all hear. You know, we have the local realtors we work with, occasionally some wholesalers, not as many as you would expect. Some local contractors, a local bank or two. Yes, I know I'm a private lender, but we use real money too. Ha ha. All right. Private lenders that trust us and we build those relationships. That's crucial to your success.
You're talking about people like yourself.
True private people. You know, your local,
I see.
Your local orthodontist,
Got it.
dentist, lawyer.
Okay. But
master plumber.
That person would be in that town.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
But they trust you. They built on their investing, lending privately based on your relationship with them.
Got it.
And that's one of trust, you know, over time, right? and then coming to that town and understanding what I'm really looking for.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy, you could like fly into Cleveland and get lost. They got every kind of building you can imagine. But what are you going there for? Right? I want to understand what my box is, what I'm really looking for, so I can use those 2 days productively.
Right.
The flip side is, in understanding that, I also then know who to go talk to. What do I mean by that? I talk to new rookies, whatever you want to call them, investors all the time, and they ask me the question you asked. As you start to define what you think your buy box and believe your buy box will be,
Mm-hmm.
you can then go online to these investor oriented areas and see who the hot real estate people are in the areas. That's who I want to communicate with, right? If I see a realtor that has 15 listings in this zip code, and those are traditionally, in my mind, my experience, the investor oriented areas and not just selling primary residence in A neighborhoods, that's who I need to connect with. Maybe I need to show up in their office with Dunkin' Donuts and some donuts, or not to be overly, stereotypical, but I want to make it a friendly manner with which to introduce myself
Right.
and explain what I do.
Right. You know.
Ideally, I have 1 or 2 examples already where I've done it, so I can show them I'm real.
Okay.
Because they already have people who can buy from them, right? And you need to break into that list. And sometimes you're going to have to buy one property not as perfect as you'd like to buy it to show them you're real. That doesn't mean grossly overspend. That's not what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a difference between 175 and 180, maybe it's the one time you really actually pay 180 to show them you'll close. Because everyone shows up with these pre-approval letters, and it sounds like you're ready to go. But are you really? No one knows. Once you close, you've established yourself as a different person. Now that piece of paper you show up with has some meaning to somebody, right? You've proven you can close. That's a big difference maker in our industry.
Mm.
So you want to find those types of people, networking at real estate investment organizations, some of the meetups. I would suggest before you spend a lot of money on some of these bigger masterminds, you sort of maybe go local first and get yourself in with some of the real estate investment groups locally so that you can know all the vernacular, have all the acronyms down pat, listen to what some people are talking about so you can go talk about it elsewhere so you sound more up to date or relevant. One of the biggest advantages I personally have is traveling the country. When I'm in these different quadrants of the country, everything is real estate, that's true, but it doesn't work exactly the same everywhere. When I was in Arizona, a good example, I thought this was super ugly. We talked about this one time, I think. They have that second driveway,
Mm-hmm.
and the second driveway is set up for RV or trucks. Being the Northeast, and they're like, who the hell was on
Oh yeah,
that?
you told us about this at when we were at the coffee shop last time.
I'm thinking like myself, like that is.
Why would you want this?
That's an eyesore.
Right.
But I didn't realize it's making the house worth 5-7% more.
Wow.
And more attractive to certain types of people, because if you have to go park your truck or vehicle 25 minutes away, and you get in off the road at 11 o'clock, and your wife has to come pick you up, that's a real disruption to your family.
Right.
So being able to do that local at your own residence. But if I wasn't in Arizona and in the Southwest doing some business and learning, I'd never know that. I just think that looks weird and tell my people I work with, like, don't do that. And I'd be wrong. So you're constantly learning and evaluating. In Texas, I learned about Zone 1. What's the big deal? Until, of course, a hailstorm or a hurricane happens, and you're close to the Gulf, and now your insurance goes through the roof. I didn't know Zone 1 was a big problem.
Oh wow. What is that like the area that you're in?
Truly a geographic map
Okay.
that insurance companies use. And if you're on on a 4-lane highway, if you're on one side versus the other where your kid goes to school,
Yeah.
welcome to Insurance 101. If you're on the wrong side of that, your insurance can be 25, 50% higher.
Wow. Okay.
For the same house, but it's just on the other side, not in the belt. You have to learn about that. And
you're saying the way you can do that is through realtors, building those relationships.
yes.
Yeah.
You guys both have cars?
Yes.
One of my great pet peeves in the real estate industry. Cars. I'll tell you why. When you want to buy a car, you get so geared up for like 2 weeks ahead of time. You check the Kelly Blue Book, the Carfax, MSRP online, and you go into that dealership ready to fight it out for 5 hours to save $9 a month. Right? It's the truth. You guys,
yeah, for
we've
sure.
all been through
for
it.
sure,
Right?
for sure. Yeah.
Talk to the salesperson. They have to go talk to the finance manager. It's like, can't we just talk to the finance manager and get this over with? I got my facts. Here's my facts. They're not changing. It's online. It's public record. But you're going to buy this house for the first time for $280,000 on an investment property, and I ask you about your due diligence. Christian told me it was a good idea. And that was your due diligence. What? This is the single biggest purchase you've ever made, except for maybe your own primary residence. Like, that was really your DD? That was really your due diligence? Like somebody said it was a good idea, a good investment?
Right.
That's crazy to me. But you would spend that time to pound away for the car for $9 a month, but you won't put the same energy into an investment like that.
Wow. That's a great analogy.
I mean, it's so true, though. We see it time and time again around the country.
Yeah.
It's insane. One of the mentorship groups I'm part of, truthfully, it's expensive. There's a lot of good knowledge and some really successful people that are really nice in it, so I like it. And it helps hold me personally accountable, so I use it for that too. But somebody called me up. They were going to spend $1 million for a property. And in the property, it was one of those kind of odd properties where it has more than one house on the property.
Okay.
Right? Which is not that uncommon in certain parts of the country, but it's not the most common. And inside of one of the buildings on the property, which was in a residential zone, was a church. And they just automatically assumed when the church came out, they could put residences in it and chop it up further into individual apartments. They hadn't even considered the tax ramifications because no one had paid real estate taxes on the parcel for years because the church is a nonprofit. Right? Yeah, so they're not even running accurate numbers to figure this out.
Yeah.
And they hadn't talked to zoning to say, hey, are we going to be allowed to do this? What can we do? They're like, you really need to go ask those questions? I don't know. You're going to spend $1 million. I think you should ask some of the questions, no? How could you not do that?
Right.
But again, a lot of real estate investors, you hear the word due diligence, you'd be stunned how little they really do. It's a shame. And Instagram, television, HDTV, whatever it is, they make it sound like everyone's winning. The vast majority of people are not winning. It's not talked about publicly a lot, but I've been in some situations where someone really let the curtain down and you sat down for an hour and talked to them, try to help them a little bit and understand what's going on. And they were suffering a lot of pain from their jobs. People who thought they understood a lot and then moved into a different strategy and weren't really prepared to do it big, quick. They could have done it well, small, and grown, but they went big, quick, and then got overwhelmed.
My goodness.
One of the things that we try to talk to people about all the time, and our whole industry does, it's not just a me thing, I'm not so smart. Really being honest with yourself about how much experience you have, and then matching up the job with that. If you're going to go flip a house, if it's your first house, and you're going to spend $100,000 to buy the house in one of the cities where there are more low-cost dollars, then you're going to put $200,000 into it. Do you really think on your first house you're ready to do a $200,000 renovation, and/or trust all the people that tell you, "Hey, don't worry, I got it"? You sure?
Yeah.
Maybe they're going to get you for $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. But does that mean you got it? I don't think so. So it's not as cool. Not as doesn't look as cool or sexy.
To start small, you're saying?
Yeah, but to do things that make sense to start.
Yeah.
To get better, it's easier to go bigger, yes.
Yeah.
But then you're going to find a tipping point too in your career where you're going to say, hey, you know what? I don't want to gut everything anymore. It's hard. It's not as easy as it looks. And on HDTV, there's 45-minute segments. Nobody goes through the whole house in 45 minutes like they do on television. Come on. This is not real. So taking a step back and being honest with yourself is like the first defining moment. And understanding what you really want to achieve, writing it down, sticking to it, finding the right people to partner with, honest, trustworthy. They don't have to be Tom Brady at whatever they do.
Right.
But honest, trustworthy, consistent. Those are three big hallmarks. And I'm sure anyone else you've spoken to that has some experience in real estate would tell you those three things have been defining moments for them as they figured out the hard way, all of us, me included, we partner with the wrong people sometimes.
Wow.
Right? They fold the tents and go home at the first sign of adversity. And that's not helping us. Because whoever we borrowed the money from, they want to get paid. And they don't care where it comes from. So you have to be ready for that. And finding out at that wrong moment that you have the wrong partners is a bitch, right? Because your family's not thrilled when you cut the whole check and you're only supposed to cut 33% of it, right? That's affecting your family's vacation a couple of days a year.
Mm-hmm.
It affects your relationships as you get a little tense and angry and the kids come and ask you a question, you don't have patience for it,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
right? All these types of things. So, you want to really think these things through and out so that you achieve better balance, which I don't like that word. I don't really believe in it personally,
Mm-hmm.
but you can do things in a manner that works for your environment and your whole environment, including your family, and having them either involved or not involved. But the most successful people I've seen have good family relationships, have achieved that, have a lot less noise in their personal lives, right? That way, because they have one family, makes it a lot easier to work through and deal with, and they're personally more happy too. That's a good place to work for. It's hard to work when you're all beat up all the time and
Right.
you're like you got to chase every nickel and brutal. And I've been there. It's not a good time.
Yeah. It seems like what you're saying is, though, every investor needs to kind of go through the getting punched in the face, the not building the relationship properly with their people that they thought they trusted. The deal doesn't work out. How it seems like that is a necessary, like, what do you see? Like, is
At
that
some
kind of
level, a
necessary?
little bit.
Yeah.
But
It doesn't have to be extreme, but
right,
it needs to.
that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
When I'm talking in front of groups and I tell them about my big losses, this is not a contest to see who can have more pain.
Right.
But we want to help people learn from that. Let's step one. Let's understand leverage and how to use it well.
Yeah.
Not against ourselves as soon as things go neutral. We don't forget about even talking about going down. We're talking about neutral and have the interest clock kill ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We want to help people with that. Understand some of that so that they can minimize the pain they have to go through. But if you're really going to be in this game long term,
You're gonna.
there's going to be a couple clunkers. It's
Yeah.
just real. I mean, anyone who tells you different, God bless them. They did 2-3 deals and it all worked out. That's fantastic. I'm happy for it.
Mm-hmm.
But you show me a person who's done 100 deals. They're not. If they're going to really be honest, they got a couple they don't want to talk about. They'll talk about them, but they don't really want to.
Mm-hmm.
But it's real, and it helped them a lot in some of the other things they did.
Mm-hmm.
It helped them understand the value of relationships and reinforce in their own minds how much they should nurture those.
Right.
It reinforced how much and how they should use leverage. It reinforced understanding, building relationships with contractors, cutting them off quick when things aren't going right, not hoping they'll get it right.
Right.
Right. To me, I always tell people if a contractor's voicemail box is full, I won't work with them. I know in today's age, nobody listens to their voicemail. Right? I get it. But if I can't leave you a message, when is the communication ever going to get better? And that's before you have my money. I can't even talk to you. Once you have my money, I know you're not going to talk to me. Right? So we got to start from a good place.
Yeah.
And these are some basic
things to look for.
signs, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to make fun of anybody who's a hardworking person, man, woman, younger
Of
person,
course.
older.
Yeah.
But I go to job sites in different cities, and you see like trucks that are falling apart, tools all over the place. You go inside the front door, and the job site is a horrific mess. Is that really what you want to hire with your money? Seriously, not really. Why would you have the audacity to think for you it'll be different?
Yeah,
really?
you're not a special snowflake.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
None of us are.
Yeah.
Right? Until you're Tiger Woods or Brady or somebody. Till then, we're not. So finding people who can run an organized job site, who can communicate. And I'm not saying being the greatest orator in the world. That's not what I'm saying. But they can communicate with you, and they will. Hey, I'm busy via text. I can get back to you within 4 hours. Hey, I can live with that.
I can live with that.
Something, right?
Yep.
Not fuck you. Can't. I have no
Sorry.
place where you are, and I got. I'll get back to you. 14 days from now. Like that doesn't work. It's my money. It was either all mine. Somebody partnered in with me. People trusted me. I can't have that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to find. Sometimes back to the point of the local realtor.
Right.
Who's a good investor-friendly realtor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're handyman they trust and work with.
Right.
They're gonna have a contractor too they've had good success with. And maybe you have to pay $2 extra an hour to get that handyman to work with you the first time, but it's worth
Worth
it.
it.
The job gets done instead
Yeah.
of paying for it 4 times. People want to save so much money they lose a fortune, right? It's a shame, but it's real. Another personal pet peeve of mine, but I'm no genius. I can do math pretty well. I go into Home Depot and I can add up the costs. I don't understand how you could be an investor and not know what's going into your bill. They tell you at whatever group you went to for the weekend, you spent $9.99 to learn for the weekend. Okay. They tell you to get 3 offers, 3 bids. You don't even know if they're good or bad. You just know one's cheapest, one's highest, one's in the middle. How do you know what's good or bad? All three could stink. All three could be amazingly good. I don't know without looking. But I know not every house in America, 90 something plus percent of them have a hallway bathroom that's 5 by 8. A huge percentage of houses in America, especially in investment areas, have 10 or 12, 10 by 12 or 12 by 12 kitchens, or what looks like that, right?
Mhm.
With one window in it. And you need to know where to position the sink underneath the window instead of putting the sink facing the wall, right? I mean, going into Home Depot to the pro desk, now it's called, with a couple of cups of coffee from Dunkin' Donuts, handing them out and asking a few questions so you can start to learn that stuff. They'll take you over to the department and show you all the materials that go into this. Now you can make a much more educated decision on these proposals and understand them.
Hmm.
I don't understand how you can't do that. You don't have to do it every week. That's
Right,
not what
right,
I'm
right.
saying. But let's do it once every 6 months as things change. Just walk through for 2 hours, an hour.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody says, "Oh, you're hanging out. Here's your coffee." Right? Hey, can I ask you? You see the contractors all the time. What are some of the more popular, newer building materials you see people using all the time? Right? So that you can start to understand and match up. That's why you go to some open houses. What is selling? Do I need a gooseneck faucet on sinks? Do I need the farm faucets, the big basket like sinks?
Mhm.
In the shower, do I have to have that golf head?
Mhm.
You want to know that. It doesn't mean you have to buy the most expensive one of it, but you need to buy the right piece of material so it looks like the others and your house sells through, right? You're trying to do that at reasonable cost. I get it. So there might be 4 online. You find one at Home Depot or Lowe's or Builders General or some other place who are having a sale that day. You pick it up at a good price. Most of my friends that are really successful at this, they buy appliances. I know smash and dent doesn't sound right to people. They buy them, they're right in the box. The box got dented, not
Right.
the appliance.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sometimes if you have relationships, they'll let you put it aside with a small deposit. You don't have to pay for the whole thing all at once. You don't have to take it home with you immediately when you're not ready to take it home with you sometimes. And you can work through that. I don't understand how more people, if they really, really want to be in this game, don't begin to learn some of those pieces and just depend on everybody else.
Hmm.
I depend on everybody else once I understand that, so I know what it's supposed to sound like, I know what it's supposed to look like, and I know what it's supposed to feel like, so then I can do it and entrust with people that I can entrust with. But not until then. Not until then. Because contractors have jobs, haha, and just like they teach you, job, J-O-B, just over broke. Well, contractors take upfront deposits all the time. It's not necessarily to buy all the materials for your job. Just
Point.
saying, like
It's a good point.
sometimes 10% of that material goes somewhere else where they're catching up. Just saying. I'm not saying everybody's like that, but you and I both know from our own personal experiences in life, everything doesn't go perfect all the time.
Exactly. Exactly.
So why load the boat against yourself? You can buy your own materials. That's perfectly acceptable. You just hire someone to do the labor,
Mhm.
right? That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But why do you need to pay $1.20 for every dollar
Yeah.
for material? That's insane.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. It's going to kill you in these jobs.
Yeah.
Especially now, the markets are more competitive than ever. You don't have that room to give away in the job.
Exactly.
So we have to be conscious of
that. Yeah. So talking about relationships, you said I asked the question of where do you go to build these relationships, and then you said first you got to figure out what's your buy box, what fits you, and link is in the I guess link is below. So if you want to check that out and know what your buy box should be, what type of investing in real estate fits you, feel free to click that link to find out. And then you said after you figure that out, the relationships you should go to are real estate, uh, realtors, wholesalers, contractors. When do you start looking at bankers, local bankers, like you said, and private lenders like yourself?
Well, I think private lenders you want to interview early, right? You want
Okay.
to understand what they require,
Yeah.
so that you're familiar with it. You're a new investor.
Yeah.
You're going to go sign your first contract. You're going to be nervous because immediately upon signing, you have a time clock clicking now.
Right.
You would be better served to speak to Borough Loans and Lima One and RCN and the myriad of lenders across the country to see what they require ahead of time, so you're familiar with what the document packages look like, what documents they require ahead of time. You don't feel the undue stress of that clock. You know what to do, you know what's required, you start moving through the process logically together.
Yeah.
And it helps take some of that stress out. Also, just like all of us, we're in different roles in our lives and doing different things. Sometimes you just feel more comfortable with somebody else. Two people could explain something the exact same way, but for whatever reason, today, Drexel, I just felt really in step with you, and I'd rather work with you. And Christian's a nice guy, but for right now, that job didn't fit for me and him. So put yourself in that position to be in that positive situation.
Got it.
I would suggest, as you talk to, interview lenders, remember, you're new, but the lender needs you. The lender has to get money out on the street to make money. Don't feel like they're doing you a favor. They're not. Anyone who makes you feel that way, go to the next one.
Wow. Okay, that's good advice.
You know,
Say, hey, buddy, I'll do you this favor and do
it's
this.
your money.
Yeah.
You're going to pay the interest.
Yeah.
It's a two-way street. The relationship should be a two-way street, not to make you feel like they're condescending to you.
Yeah.
Screw that. Who wants to feel that way?
Right.
You're paying for it. Right? I can
course.
see if they were paying you, but it's not. You're paying them.
Yeah.
So it should at least be neutral. You get your answers to your questions calmly, rationally, in a manner you can understand. This is important. And again, starting beforehand makes it that much easier when the time clock is going.
Got it.
Having two. You should always have two lenders. Like most things in life, you're going to do the majority of your work with the one you love. But because people have lives and people want to raise, people have family, personal lives that go on that you're not involved with and don't see, at the moment, your personal investing career, when you have the single greatest deal you've ever had, I can almost guarantee in Murphy's Law that that person you do all this business with is going to be on vacation, changing jobs.
Yep. Yep.
You know, whichever, if it's a man or a woman, vice versa. I'm not trying to pick on it, having a baby, whatever it is, they're not going to be available.
Right.
Basically, the short of it. And you need to call door number two. Well, you need help from door number two quick, because this is the greatest deal you're ever going to have in your hands, and you need to close it. If you have no door number two relationship, it's hard to call some company up cold and say, hey, could you drop 8 or 12 other deals that you're working on to close next week, or move mine ahead of everybody's?
Be like, what the hell are you talking
Like, who are you?
Yeah.
But hey, Drexel, it's Joel. I know we haven't spoken in a little while. We just did that last deal about 6 months ago. Dude, I got a great one, man. Can you really help me out? Hook me up. I'll tell the process. I'll throw in some extra money, whatever it is to move it up, and I'll send the lunch in. Like, now at least I have a right to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean we can always get it done, but we're improving our chances because we have some relationship.
Got it.
That's important, right? So you end up in, like, I know it starts out 80-20 theoretically, but maybe it's 90-10, 85-15.
Yeah.
But it gives you a second relationship. You got to have that. A lot of times when I'm approaching clients for the first time and I'm at an event and they tell me what lender they use all the time, I talk about this because they really haven't thought it through. And I've gained a lot of clients where I'm not doing all their business. And that's okay.
That's fine. Yeah.
That's fine, right? I mean, Kiavi is the biggest animal in the whole industry. I just need to carve out 1% of their business. I don't need to carve out 30% of it. I couldn't handle it anyway. They're doing $7-8 billion a year in loans. But if I could grab an extra $3 million a month in loans, that helps my company. I'm talking to you, Drexel, in a manner that makes sense to you. I'm talking about getting 10-15% of your business as a backup plan. Well, if I talk to 100 people like you a quarter, it builds my pipeline.
Yeah.
Right? In a way that's beneficial to you. It's protecting your business. And beneficial to me, it's building my business. Together we win. You see a lot of times when I go to these events and talk, they're not used to a lender speaking that way. Everybody wants your business, right? I'm the best. It doesn't matter. That's the point. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Today I'm at 7%, someone else is at 7 1/8, and vice versa on Wednesday. It's going to be. But if I'm not adding other value to you, who cares? If I'm not the cheapest every day, why would you ever talk to me?
Right.
But if there's other value prop that I'm bringing to help you in your business, then there is some reason to give me some. That's all. But that's smart in all businesses. That's just not real estate investing. That's in all relationships, right? Your family buys most of its cars from the same place, but not all of them, right? You go to dinner often at one place, but not always.
Mm-hmm.
You know, think of it just logically, right? I mean, it makes sense. Same reason as an investor, we don't work with 6 realtors in the same market. That's true. But do we work with 6 or 8 realtors across markets? Absolutely. Do we work with one wholesaler only? No, most likely not, because those men and women are finding deals all the time, and sometimes they're good deals, even though they're getting their swatch. God bless them. Same thing in contracting. You probably have to have 2. One could just get busy at the wrong time for you,
Right.
and if you have no relationship and backup, you're in this search, with a great deal in your hands, but the timing to get back to market is important. With some uncertainty today in the world, you want to get back to market as quick as possible for resale.
Yeah.
So having those relationships is important to your success. So you got to be selfish because you need all these things, and you got to be kind to build these relationships because it's in your own best interest still. But people lose sight of that. They
Right.
want to
Right.
make
Right.
everything really complex. Some people want to win. Want to win. It's not real. There's a dollar in real estate. It gets whacked up by a lot of different people. You can keep as much of that dollar as you want 1 or 2 times, and all the rest of the people tell you to go home and leave them alone. Or you can split it up reasonably fairly. I know you want an extra 1 or 2%. That's different than gleaning out 20 extra percent. You take 1 or 2 or 3% extra all the time, people will work with you, treating them reasonably fairly. You interact with them professionally, politely.
Yeah.
A little kindness. You send some, maybe a pizza on a Friday to the work, site.
Yeah.
If you're in the area and you stop for a couple Dunkin' Donuts or something, or Starbucks, whatever, it goes a long way. You're not just a jerk owner, right?
Hmm.
These little things all go into the big thing. It's like, I don't know. Have you ever read the book Atomic Habits?
I haven't.
So it's a great book, but it tricked me. So the name on the title is Atomic Habits in big letters, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember exactly. I think it's around 300 pages. And it's not the fastest read, but it's a pretty good read. But what I found myself doing, I kept flipping the pages waiting for the atomic habit to be exposed to me. And I knew I wouldn't get that in the first 10 pages, or else why would you write 300? But as I closed the book and I started to think about it, it reaffirmed for me that all these daily little inch moves
Hmm.
are what make the atomic habit. And it's similar in Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill doesn't jump out and tell you, do this, Drexel, and your life is magic. But as you flip back in all your underlined sentences and whatnot through the book, there's 20, 40 pieces of magic. It's not one thing. And in your businesses, it's not one thing. I mean, once in a while someone creates the thing, but that's not real usually, right? You don't have the best chicken parm hero in America. You have a really good one that you make and serve to people, and you serve it in a nice way, and you create a warm environment for them to come in and buy it, right? And it's reasonably priced to the high end, so you can make some edge. And you serve good chips and some cheap chips, and you package all these things, and you're bringing somebody a full good package, right? Well, that's like what we're talking about here. That happens with a team approach, right? And Atomic Habits sort of reinforces that, because all these little things become your habits. Then your habits dictate your life, right? That's kind of the point of the book. So it's in your own best interest to develop good ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because then you could have a good life.
Yeah.
Right? That's the concept. But again, I felt like tricked as soon as I closed the book after 300 pages. It took me a little while to understand that. I had to think about it, kind of conceptualize it in my head, and just go through it. And then it was like, wow, light bulb goes off. And you're like, damn, that was a good book. And there's a bunch of books like that. One of my friends, David, He got me to read the 5 a.m. Club a couple years ago. 5 a.m. Club. Pretty popular. I read it. It was a very fast read. And to me, it was very impactful. It reinforced a lot of good habits. It also reinforced life.
Hmm.
You know, make sure you enjoy life. Make sure you find value in things. It's not just about X, Y, and Z all the time. I'm very fortunate. I get to do something I truly love. For me, that's really lucky. More than 50% of the time I'm working, if somebody told me I was working, I wouldn't believe it. To me, interacting with people, getting to do things like this, and getting out and meet people, to me is fun. I know it's how we generate business over time, but it's fun. And that's an awesome part of being able to be blessed enough to travel the country and meet people all over. It's awesome. I learn all the time. You get to meet cool people, and cool people are just people doing things, making something happen. And, you know, I went to Penn State University, which is a nice school, but it's not really like changing the world in that sense. And then you meet some people who go to some of the greatest Ivy League schools and they're not really doing anything. Then you meet some people who don't even have GEDs who are multimillionaires because all they do is do things, right? They have great action plans and they execute them. As a friend of mine says, it's about implementation. It's about action. It's not just about being the most intelligent person in a room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, kind of in a vacuum, it doesn't really get you anywhere.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to conceptualize and think your way through things, but you still have to go do them.
To execute.
Yeah. Some young people in the game, and I don't mean just chronologically young. It could be a 60-year-old starting in real estate for the first year.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the fear is just between your own ears, right? It's what's really going to be the worst thing that happens. Right. You're going to end up where you are today. Okay. You know what that is. You might have $5,000 less because it was a disastrous deal and you lost $5,000. It stinks. I hate to lose the extra $5,000. It's going to change my life for 2 or 3 weeks or a month. It's not ending my life though. That's different than losing $500,000. That's true. But if you're doing things that make sense, the chances of you losing huge are very low.
Low, yeah.
And that gets back to what we talked about earlier.
Right.
Being honest and matching up your experience with where you are so that you don't put yourself in a position where you can lose huge.
Mm-hmm.
You put yourself in a reasonable expectation to win
mm-hmm.
and very minor damages. Usually those damages should be between breaking even and making, $5,000, $10,000. Not that many people really can make $100,000 net on a flip. That makes sense. Yes, you can buy an expensive house, say $800,000, put in $150,000 in renovation, and maybe make an extra $100,000. But is that a great return on your money? Probably not. But if you buy a house for $100,000 and put in $50,000, there's a very good likelihood you're not going to make $100,000. But you might make 40 or 50, and on a ratio basis, that's a lot better than what we described at first.
That's a lot better. Yeah.
With a lot less risk, right?
Right.
Might not sound as cool at the cocktail party, but if Christian and his friends are thinking about maybe co-investing with you, and you could show them 1, 2, 3 of those that consistently left us in a very low risk to loss position, and a very nice, maybe not ultra great, but a very nice rate of return, those people are going to feel much more confident and comfortable investing with you. They're not looking for someone to hit a home run. People don't believe in that. Santa Claus doesn't really just come every day. It's not real. Right? So you're trying to build a business. You need to look at it that way.
Yeah.
You need to develop it that way.
Yeah.
As you do that well, you'll be very successful.
Yeah.
You'll meet people who want to help you and partner with you and build those relationships continuously.
Yeah, I'm even in the beginning of this conversation, you were talking about giving others leeway, like for example, your friends that were working with you at the trading firm,
Mm-hmm.
and then you knew that they were going to ask you every Christmas for
coming.
it, right? You knew it was coming.
I knew it was coming.
And you had two options. You could either give them that leeway, or you could not and keep more for yourself. But you gave them that leeway. You gave them a piece of the pie. You became better off because of it. They became better off because of it. The same applies here for real estate.
Absolutely.
Same applies for business in general. And
yes.
And then what you're coming to now, and it's interesting. Christian and I were just talking about this because we hopped off another like webinar basically that we did, and a lot of those questions that were coming from the rental investors were, and I realized it's out of fear. It's between their ears.
Absolutely.
It's because they think that they're not going to be able to manage the debt. It's not that they don't think the debt will work or that it's not real or whatever.
Right.
It's that they just don't think that it's possible for them. Would you agree?
I think that's really true.
Yeah.
A lot of it, in my mind, is because they haven't really come to grips yet and being honest with themselves about stepping away and distancing themselves from negativity, the environments maybe we grew up in that weren't positive and supportive. And thus, they never wake up thinking, what if everything went right today? Think about it. You guys meet a lot of people. How many people you know ever get up and say, hey, you know what? Today's going to be a kick-ass day. Everything's going to go right.
Zero.
Not zero, but
I know,
damn close to it.
Damn close.
Damn close. I know a couple guys that act that way and speak that way. And they're wildly successful, I might add, too.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
I might add that.
Yeah.
Their mindset helps propel,
Hmm.
not the other way around. You expect things to go wrong. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, of course.
They go wrong.
Of course, yeah.
That's not to be Pollyannish and say if you don't think that everything's going to go right. That's not what I'm saying. But if I'm starting out negative, it's really hard to get to the positive. If I start out positive and I don't get it all, I'm still pretty positive, and that's pretty good, right? That's why sometimes when you're public speaking, and then people come over to the booth and they're like, "Well, you know, you're really fortunate or lucky to do this." You know, people are always seeing where you're at now. They don't see where what you had to do to get there.
Right.
And you know, in my office, we have a lot of people between 23, 4, and 30 years old. And I harp on them all the time. Don't look at me as the potential to double your income. That's not what you want to do. You don't want to go from 100 to 200. You want to build something that can take you to a million. And next year, if you get to 140 and then 210 and then 320, and you keep working your way to a million, why would you limit yourself to build something that can only double? That doesn't make sense to me. Now, I wasn't that smart when I was younger. That's for sure. I just thought how, so I worked more hours, right? To our points earlier.
Right.
I didn't learn that till more recently. And now I think differently. Now I'm thinking about how can I find people to help me scale things.
Yeah.
So that we could accomplish something bigger. And you know, when you do that well, you feel better, you have more time. People really want to interact with you because it feels like, you know, they're doing well. People like to be around people who are doing well, right? So a lot of those positive things fall into place and you get rid of more and more of that negativity. I could never have been or achieve any newer success until I really started to let go of all the old bad stuff. And that was on me. I had to make that choice. No one was going to do that for me. No one said, hey, Joel, you know, if you think this way, it'll all work. But if you think that way, it can't work. And that's where I was stuck. And I think a lot of people are stuck that way. We go to school in America. You know, you're in fourth grade. You get a 70 on a test instead of a 90. Somebody leans into your ear and tells you should have studied more and you're not good at this. Who the hell are they to be able to tell you that, right?
Right.
You know, you should be afraid of the next test. You're not going to do well. How do you know? Maybe the next test is on something I'm interested in. Could be, right? I have one son who I'm a guardian to, and it became a constant battle because he could get an A on something that he really liked with 2 subjects in school, and then you get a C on something else. Like, listen, you have to put in some effort because if you can get an A in something, you can certainly get a C plus or a B, but you're not putting in any effort. So based off your natural ability, you're getting a C. Well, that's not good enough for what you want to accomplish. Right? You want to go do this and this. You need to improve that a little.
Yeah.
I'm not talking everything should be an A. I'm a realist. Show some effort, man, because it's going to permeate through everything you do. And that's really the point. I read some stuff by a guy who is amazingly insane, right? David Goggins. Party's amazing, party's insane when you're reading this stuff because you just can't believe some of the stuff he's done. It's insane.
Yeah.
and then you see where he is in life and what he accomplished and where he's been. That's amazing. Right? But the one theme throughout all of this stuff, which is really true, and I've seen it unbelievable amount of people, as a person, we are capable of so much more than we really believe we are. You should learn to find ways to demand that of yourself and not cheat yourself, right? It's just true. I mean, Ed Milet's another really good motivational type person and
Yeah.
speaker and
He's a
book
similar.
writer, and the power of one more.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'm doing something at the end of the night, I'm exhausted, I want to go to sleep, and I'm like, all right, one more.
One more.
Just do one more quick, get out of here, right? Those types of things make a difference in the long game. No cheating that. No, like, use the expression, there's no fat pill. You don't eat the pill and then the next day wake up perfect.
Yeah.
It's just not real.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to put the work in and you make those good decisions, your life can change dramatically. A lot quicker than you think, too, no matter where you came from. And I don't know if I told you guys this story, but I'll see him coming up pretty soon. I have a business friend who is actually in jail. He tells the story openly. What he's done with his life is incredible because he made the decision to change. It wasn't easy. You know how many times when he got out, people he knew in the street, hey, yo, man, what up, right? But he decided to step away from that. He made a conscious decision. His life dramatically changed. It wasn't easy. He was stepping into something he didn't know was comfortable, right? He was stepping away from something that he knew, but he knew wouldn't lead him to where he wanted to get to. And he made a conscious, hard decision to change that. He's the beneficiary, and his family's the beneficiary of that change. If he could do it, and you don't really have any of these harsh problems already, like how come you can't propel yourself forward? You have to ask yourself that, right? Be honest. Go around the room, introduction, you're in a Saturday workshop, there's 40 people in the room, 20 people in the room. Hey, Christian, what do you really want to do the next year? I want to make $100 million. You have no plan. What do you mean you want to make $100 million? Somebody else says, I want to make $3 million over the next 5 years. I plan on doing it by flipping one house per month, each month for the next 3 years. That might not get them there. It might get them there, but at least the person's thought about it, put something down, trying to achieve it. That person has a much greater chance and opportunity to go achieve that. Plus, a lot more people are going to want to work with that organized person who's just not going off half-cocked, right? I want to make $100 million. How do you even react to that? I was in the room with the mentor. She had me come in to do some stuff. She had me like open up on mindset for 45 minutes. Like I didn't even know what to say to the person. I didn't want to embarrass them and ask them how they thought they were going to do that, since they, aren't in that sphere right now.
Right.
Right. That's not my place to do that. But it's like you got to think to yourself, like, what are you really saying and doing, right? People say they want a lot of stuff, but what are you willing to do to get
it? Yeah.
And again, it's perfectly fine to be honest with yourself and say, I'm okay with doing this. Okay. Nobody's going to say, hey, you're a bad person because you only want to do that. That's fine. It's respectable. You take it seriously. You're good at it. God bless you. Get everyone's respect. But you can't blurt out then that I want to make $100 million. Like that, these are very inconsistent, right? These don't make sense together. They don't fit. So, we want to help people, step back and slow it down for a minute and think about that. That's really important.
Yeah.
I tell this story all the time when I speak publicly, even though sometimes when I look out and there's people there that have already heard it. I just think it's so important, at my age now, 80 is not that far away anymore. And you can imagine, you're 80 years old, you wake up in this really small studio apartment, take a quick shower, it's 5 o'clock in the morning, it's dark out, it's raining, it's cold. You go to the front door of your apartment, you grab your apron off the wall, you go downstairs to the bus stop, you're sitting on the corner, waiting for a bus in the dark at 80 years old, a little bent over, right? Raining, it's cold. You jump on the bus, you go 2 stops, you get into McDonald's, you go behind the counter, you put your apron on, and I say to the person in front of the counter, can I supersize this for you? Or would you like cream in your coffee? People laugh usually, but if you really look around America right now, if this is being videoed and the video will go out, you can see what I look like. And I would invite you to really think hard about what the people behind these counters, these stores,
Amen to
and
that.
the service areas
Yep.
look like, because they look a lot more like me than they used to.
Than they used to. Yep.
A huge part of society is retiring into poverty. And if you don't take it upon yourself to think that through, and think about what you need to do for yourself, you're making a bad mistake. Because each day goes by, you do nothing, you're closer to that. McDonald's has already opened a fully automated store. I now work at Target. I work in the supermarket. I work at Home Depot. Self checkout, right?
Yeah.
I have to bring my own bag sometimes now. Things are changing, folks. There isn't that cushy whatever. And I don't really know the whole Social Security thing well, but I think like the big check is what, $2,300, $2,400,
If that. Yeah.
right? That's the big check.
Yeah.
That's if you waited till you're 72 to start claiming or
Right.
something. Is that really going to cover the mustard? I don't think so. What are you doing? Like, how are you preparing? Not everybody has a 401k. Not everybody has a pension. Will the pension be underfunded? Will the company get sold and folded? I don't know.
Yeah.
You can't depend on these things. You can depend on yourself. You got to think about that. That's why I think that kind of story is really important always, because it affects all of us. You know, we have to be conscious of this. It doesn't matter where you came from, what you look like. We have to be conscious of it. I think that's an important aspect for all of us, to really make sure we're thinking about our futures and how we're going to handle that and be prepared so that we don't end up, 71 years old and broke.
Yeah. So I have a question.
Yeah.
Let's say someone's going down the route of building these relationships. They want to get into investing. You've now given so much wisdom, right? And we like, oh my goodness, like it's just. I hope you guys are taking away as much as I'm taking away from this because this is amazing. At what specifically to Burr loans? Like at what point, if, if I guess when should they reach out to you? Should they reach out to you at all? Like what are you guys really good at that these other guys like Lima One, RC, and Kiavi aren't as good as? Like they cannot compete with you guys on this.
Look, everyone can compete. First off,
Okay,
I'm not delusional.
got it. I didn't know. That's
But
yeah.
one of the things that we do that I think is a little unique. I give a talk publicly, and you have this slide deck, and it says Burr Loans on the first thing. And that's the last time I talk about loans. We're a lifestyles company that lends money.
Interesting.
If you're in the real estate biz, it's pretty much going to dominate your life or take up a huge swatch of your secondary time outside of your W-2. And we're plugged in with you. We are investors. We are rental owners. I built a lot of single family houses and small commercial buildings and townhomes. So to me, a couple people in my office, this is what we do. And we want to talk to you and help you with that. I tell people all the time on Instagram that hit me, or Facebook, or just communications. Look, I am happy to speak to you, whether we do business together or not. Our talk helps you in any way, I've accomplished a great thing. And at some point, you'll refer me a friend, or you'll come back. I've been fortunate enough, people have come back. Hey, I got my first property. I met you 6 years ago at Nick Tang's event or something.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do this deal with you. That's unbelievable to me. It's amazing, right? It's a great feeling too, personally, to know that some way, that kindness, listening, helping, giving them some advice, input, not talking down to them, but helping them. To me, that's what it's about. Like, that's how you make an impact. That's how you help people.
I see.
We on a daily basis, we have to be competitive. I get it. People should be reaching out to their lenders, companies like us, early so that they can get comfortable and familiar with the process.
Mm-hmm.
Do we try to, quote, win deals at times and cut fees? Of course.
Like every company.
Yeah. It's business.
Yeah.
But I'd also like to think there's a human side of our company, because we're not perfect all the time. We definitely make mistakes too, just like all of them. and we told you you're going to get a draw in like a day, and it's 2 days or three, and or Friday past the cutoff, and the wire's not going to hit till Monday.
Till Monday. Yeah.
Like, these things happen in our industry.
Right.
If you don't have any kind of communication with the people, it's a disaster. So, and my communication always needs to be improved. I'm constantly working on it every day. People are shocked, like they send you a note in Instagram and you actually respond. They figure it's going to be like an Autobot. We don't really do the Autobot thing. We really respond to people. Some of our best deals ever have been done on the weekend. People can get a hold of us late at night, early in the morning. One of my 4 or 5 best friends in life, really, he had borrowed from us about 18 months prior, came back, but it was a Sunday. I happened to be in the office for a few hours. I picked up the phone, we started talking. We ended up doing a lot of business, but more importantly, we actually become real friends. And like, I go visit him in Florida, we go hang out. Take his wife out to dinner and hang out. And those are special things. Those are great. I mean, to me, that's what it's kind of about. I mean, I know it's 7 versus 7 and an eighth. I get it. But that's the boring part of the business, honestly.
Yeah.
People matter. I didn't really understand that fully until about 2014.
Yeah.
I wish I would have learned that in 2000, but I didn't. And I had to get really humbled to learn that, but I'm glad I did.
Yeah. So you're a lifestyle. You guys are more of a lifestyle company, focusing on the investor as a whole,
Yes.
rather than just winning this one deal for you.
Yep.
So do you guys offer like other like services too, or is it kind of just like, hey, we're here for you if you need us?
Look, I'm not a tax accountant. I'm not a licensed CPA or
Got
anything.
it. Yeah.
You want to go over it based on my experience. We have to give you those caveats because I can't get in trouble.
Of course, yeah.
But I think people should have well-rounded scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
I tell the young guys in the office, you're closing these loans, you're making money. You're an idiot if you're not putting some of the money every 2 weeks into the S&P 500. Close your eyes, put $200 every 2 weeks, $100, whatever it is. Just so that you look down in 10, 15 years, you got something
Right.
for real. And in 30 years, you got a lot of money, right? People don't realize. Who was I listening to? I never listen to Tony Robbins. Not because I don't think he's great, but it's just like I feel like I'm traveling around. I kind of know the Tony Robbins thing. But I was maybe in an airport or something who was there, so I watched for like 10, 12 minutes. He was talking about $300 a month. If you're a professional person, you can be honest and sit down with your budget and carve out 300. There's a couple subscriptions you can give up. There's a couple less Starbucks cups at $6 or $7 you can have, and you can magically come up with 300 once a month. I'm not saying that's perfect for everybody, but a lot of people he's talking to. $300 a month in an S&P 500 fund, 10 years. Not 30, for 10. 20 years after that, based on the prior 50 or 60 years of average rate of return, let's call it 9%, 8%.
Mm-hmm.
That's not every week. That's not every month, but you got to keep doing it. That money turns into $1.8 million. Imagine if you started at 20 and you did that till you were 30. At 50, you'd have $1.8 million. Not so bad. Not terrible. One thing Tony didn't say is you had to go to Harvard to do that. He didn't even say you need to be a U.S. citizen. He didn't say you had to speak English as a first language. He didn't say you need a GED. He just said you had to have discipline to do it. That's all he said. He spoke to everybody. If you have discipline to do it, you can change your life. That's what he was saying. I know he put money to it, a number to it, but that's what he was saying. If you can really suck it up and implement discipline in your life, as my friend Anthony would say, everything gets easier.
Yeah.
It's harder, but it gets easier.
Yeah.
And it took me 5 years of him beating that into my head. I finally lost 35. I got like 15 more to go.
Nice.
But
Congrats.
Thank you. But I needed that to permeate into other parts of my life too.
Right.
Not just losing weight, but how you also do other things, right? That impacts. And as you start to do that, things actually get easier. Bills get paid off. Dave Ramsey and you snowball.
Yep.
You start to figure out how to do it strategically. Not, I don't agree with Dave that you should never have debt. There's plenty of good debt to be had.
We're on the same page. Yeah.
Right. But snowball is a very impactful thing.
Oh yeah.
And snowball then allowed me to get to business credit. right? Business credit is you guys know, is a hugely impactful opportunity if used wisely.
Yep.
Right? But it can change your life if used wisely. And really can't. I don't know what airport I was in, and it was probably only 5 minutes, but it felt like 10 or 12 of just for the first time, God knows how long, actually listening to Tony Robbins, and it was really impactful. I tell the $300 story all the time. He's right; it's mathematically proven. Right? The only thing that won't lie to us in our life is math.
Yep.
Right? It's kind of sad, but it's kind of true. It's not kind of; it is true.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I have kids. I was a kid. We tell stories at times.
Yep.
Mom said, if you said it's okay, then I could do this. Didn't even talk to mom. Mom wasn't even home. Right? It took me like to kid number 3 to figure that out. I got 7 or 8, so I figured it out. But it took a while, right? I got beat up a few times.
Is it 7 or is it 8?
Well, it's 7 plus 1 is a guardian, so it's
okay, 8.
It's 8. 8 is enough, though. 8's enough. Yeah. But
we're on our way there. Did I tell you we're having our 3rd in May?
That's cool. That's great.
Yeah, third girl.
That's awesome. I have 5 daughters.
First 5?
No,
or?
3 natural, 2 X steps, but they still all give me hell sometimes.
Wow.
So good. They're great kids. It's amazing. They're all doing great things. It's really fortunate. My kids are healthy and doing good stuff, and pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, Joel, appreciate you taking the time to come down to us. And I think we can. I think we might have to get some more B-roll, but I think we can.
Yeah, no, we're
got
good.
it. Yeah. You want to do like a little intro, like because we didn't really get to do that. Joel kind of went into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think? I don't know if it might be clunky though, because if we do the intro, and then it like kind of fades into just Joel's.
Yeah, I mean, we could do the intro after Joel leaves. That like, or do you want to do it with him here?
Yeah, I think I'd rather do it with him here.
Yeah,
Let me just see. Wow, we went over. Yeah, this is amazing.
I was on Investor Fuel this week too on Tuesday.
Oh yeah.
They're a national mastermind. Kind of cool.
Where was that?
I got the guy to break down crying.
Where
he opened up off camera and it came out.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like, that's the difference. Like, you're really talking with people.
Yeah.
Seriously. I mean, you're supposed to have this slide deck. I lived it. I don't need to keep flipping
through it.
Yeah. They're there because someone says they're supposed to be there.
Yeah.
Or else you look weird if you don't have any slides. But I want people to ask their questions while you're going. I'm not going to forget it. I lived it, right? Or I'm living it.
Yeah.
So for all those speakers, like hold your questions to the end. Yeah, because you don't have any answers. You might forget what you're supposed to say off the slides. And we had one guy you were asking. You dropped Lima one. I was at a national event in. Don't film this.
Don't film this.
I was in a national event in Miami.